Ah dear, that's me home at last. Oh dear. Let's watch Logic's video before we get on to my stuff with the notepad as usual. Alright, play away. An amateur, alright, pal.
Hey, I'm Logic, for those of you who don't know me. I'll be concentrating heavily on the genres regarded as negative and depressing, such as black metal, death metal, and so, in that vein, it's appropriate that I take ancestor of those other genres, having pioneered the idea of playing very dark, very depressing,
he's not gonna teach you
almost
much after all,
demonic
folks.
sounding funereal themes. So in short, I'll be taking all the good genres with the most skillfully played and technically advanced music, while Monkey Tail can take all the crap genres. Although I've actually stolen glam metal and hair metal from him, yeah, you should have seen him just beg me to let him do those. But I knew he'd wear spandex in the video, and I just couldn't allow our audience to be exposed to that. I mean, when that guy puts on the spandex jumpsuit, and the lipstick, and the glitter mascara, I mean, it is... Look, I'm not one to judge, but that guy is just way too into glam. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about Monkey Tail's tendencies.
Pause. I'm not taking this from a Rocky Dennis looking motherfucker like you, Logic. Oh no. We all know why you wanted glam and hair. I certainly do anyway. It was so you could dress up like this. That's right. You wanted to be Dr. Rock, so... You wanted to be a rock and roll clown! That's right. That's all you wanted, baby. You wanted cocaine, didn't you? The problem for you is that's not all there is to glam and hair metal. You'll find that out. Now, there's a very little this fucker will teach you because he's useless. I mean, a guy that has to wear sunglasses to hide his identity. I don't know. Fucking ridiculous. I mean, 3D glasses at that. I mean, who does he think he is? This guy? Never mind. On with the show. Today's topic. New wave of British heavy metal. Otherwise called N.W.O.B.H.M. Abbreviated down to N.W.O.B.H.M. A brief history. New wave of British heavy metal started roughly around about May of '79, maybe a bit earlier, and ended in '85. The term itself was coined by a magazine editor from the magazine was called Sounds. It's pretty much the only one that would cover heavy metal at the time, in the UK at least, and it was Alan Lewis that coined the term. However, it was Jeff Barton, a journalist, who used it first. Again, it was in a Sounds piece. So, what is the sound of new wave of British heavy metal? Well, it involves two things. It involves heavy metal. The only thing is, the original heavy metal, it was the decline of it. So they toned down the blues rock influence that original heavy metal had, and instead it kind of took on a faster upbeat tempo. The reason for that is that punk had come along. It was in decline as well at the end of the 70s. As most of you will know, early punk was shite, to be honest, for the most part. Very few bands could actually play their instruments, but it was a major fuck you to the man. Anti-establishment, that sort of thing, and it brought in a new tempo, a new feeling of rawness to the game of rock and roll. And so, new wave of British heavy metal incorporated these two sounds and influences. Now this era, the new wave of British heavy metal era, it's considered a major founding stone for subgenres in metal, some extreme subgenres. Genres like black metal, thrash, and later on new wave of American heavy metal, which is like the Pantera era of metal. Later Pantera. Logic will cover early Pantera. And, well, Motorhead and Judas Priest, they, while not starting as new wave of British heavy metal, I mean they were younger, older than them by a few years, they eventually become part of the scene, and in all of it. One of the major heavy metal bands, or early metal bands, that is cited as an influence is Budgie. I've mentioned them in my last review. And that's pretty much brief history. It was a brief spurt, a very prolific time. Many for a short period, for 6 years it lasted. There was a hoot of a lot of bands. I reviewed personally about 80 of these bands, and there was a lot more out there than that at the time. And of course, as you can tell by the name, it came from the UK. I think the furthest is the Channel Isles, which is still technically a part of the UK, but not part of Britain as such. There's a couple of Irish bands out there as well. So, here's the thing that we started all this for, the music theory behind it. Well, new wave of British heavy metal, it involved fast upbeat tempos, fast guitar solos, melodic vocals that were often soaring, and lyrics usually drawn from fantasy and myth, as was the artwork of album covers. But the main thing were power chords. They really came into play with metal, new wave of British heavy metal. Now a power chord is also called the fifth chord. It consists only of the root note and the fifth interval, which is a combination of two notes. They're generally called dyads. In power chords, the ratio of frequencies between the root and the fifth is very close to what's called a just interval of 3 to 2. That's the ratio, 3 to 2. And when played through distortion, it can produce a more coherent sound. Unlike a normal chord, which consists of the same or more different degrees of the scale, so to speak. I'll get my guitar and show you what a power chord is, but I won't be playing it because it's a bit late at night. Now, I'm not going to play any of these notes, mainly because the guitar's fucked. Several strings are snapped. I'm just going to use it to show you. And secondly, it's 2 o'clock in the morning roughly. I'm not hooking this up to an amp. And thirdly, it's out of tune. Badly. I tried tuning it a wee while ago, and the best I can get my E string to do is an F. My lower E string, which is the top one here. So, without further ado, power chords. Now there's a couple of ways to do them. The first, and pretty much most popular way just now, is the way that Green Day tends to do them. Let's see. First, this is the root note. Okay, the first finger that you touch is the root note. And then the following notes there. So you're putting a finger on the upper, on the note, the one that you're upper on. The root note is what calls it. This is what makes the note what makes the note fit, makes the chord say an F chord or an E chord. So on the E string in this case, and then it's always 2 frets down for a power chord. Then the A and D string gets pressed as well. This is a 3-finger power chord, and you're just going to play the notes, the 3 strings that they're on. Like I say, Green Day tends to use this a lot, especially in their early stuff. Another one would be just these 2 notes here. Would make a power chord. Just 1 and 2. These fingers here are free. They don't touch the frets. It's just this 2 here. So the E string and the A string in this case. And again, you're just fingering the 2 strings that they're on. And another one would be to just put your finger on, say, the A string and play an open E string. That's a fairly simple way to do it. And that's your power chords. I mean, so power chords were a major thing for New Wave of British heavy metal at this time. They were easy, they were fast, it sounded good. They're just a major part of it. Now, so that was an explanation of power chords, and a wee show of what a power chord is. Yes, now I've kind of lost my flow a bit because my camcorder cut out at the other day. It's 2 days now past what from when I said I'll get my guitar and been actually showing you my guitar and working on it, because the camcorder died and I could not find my power charger. Thankfully I found it now. So where was I? Right, New Wave of British heavy metal. Due to bad production values, New Wave of British heavy metal kind of had a distinctive feel and sound to it. It's hard to describe how it feels, but we're going to give you some samples later on. And unfortunately during this time, although it's a prolific period, many bands kind of died after having 1 or 2 albums, or even an EP, and they died instead of an LP. And they kind of died off. It wasn't helped. But one of the things that New Wave British heavy metal also gave us was the style. Metal at this time kind of became synonymous with this style, with this look. You know, the long hair, the denim jackets, jeans, ripped jeans, denim jackets with band patches on them. This all became synonymous with metal throughout the 80s, and it kind of still kind of is a wee bit. But this became synonymous with it thanks to New Wave of British heavy metal, because that's the style that the fans wore, and some bands wore as well. Some of the major bands then, well, it can't be missed. They're the biggest band in the world, metal wise. They're huge, bigger than Metallica. Iron Maiden. Yes, Iron Maiden came from New Wave of British heavy metal, and they're I know some of you have been asking for us to divest into it, into what brings us personally into metal and what makes us love it so much. Me and Logic, that is. In my case, Iron Maiden were the first band that I heard that I liked that were metal. Charlotte the Harlot brought me in. Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. These tunes brought me in. In fact, I'm going to play some Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter right now.
Honey, it's getting close to midnight. True love lipstick on your linen. Bite the pillow, make no sound.
Stop! Can't play too much, otherwise we'll get the usual copyright bullshit. Another band that I enjoyed, I've seen them live twice now, is Def Leppard. They came from that time. I prefer early Def Leppard, especially their debut album On Through the Night, to modern poppy Def Leppard, which they were getting towards the end of the New Wave of British heavy metal. They were trying to crack the American market, and so Pour Some Sugar on Me and such like became their song that they released after the New Wave of British heavy metal kind of died. But before that, we had albums like On Through the Night. And let me give you an example of the difference. lot of fans felt they sold out. Not surprised really. One of the other bands, I mentioned them in the end of my last video by saying you couldn't go anywhere in the 70s by that. That was a mistake. You couldn't go anywhere in the 80s in New British Heavy Metal without Saxon, I should have said. Seeing as they only formed in 79. So Saxon, Wheels of Steel, fantastic album. One I've discovered recently because I didn't know about them, me being only 3 years old when New British Heavy Metal kind of came out, they died out, is Girls School. These girls were, it's an all-girl band, metal band, a rarity of sorts, and at the time, certainly there was only 2 major known ones. Girls School were probably the bigger ones, mainly because they were linked heavily with Motorhead. In fact, they were often called Lemmy's Girls. Demolition is a fantastic album. Demolition Boys is a good track. I'm going to play you some right now. Stop. Now is a band which were influential to Metallica. In fact, the next couple of bands were influential to Metallica. One's N.W.O.B.H.M, another one's Diamond Head, and another one's Sweet Savage, and another one's Blitzkrieg. These are all influences on Metallica. In fact, you'll recognise several of them. If you go through my playlist, you'll hear them. They were all covered, had songs covered by Metallica and such like. Blitzkrieg being the title track of Blitzkrieg's that Metallica covered. Tigers of Pantang are another one that were quite good. Witchfinder General. Of course, Judas Priest, Motorhead I've already mentioned. Samson were another one. And then we get to Venom. They were technically new wave of British heavy metal, but they definitely began black metal. They were the beginners of black metal, were Venom. In fact, their second album gave title to the genre, black metal, because it was called black metal. So yeah, I personally love new wave of British heavy metal. I am so unhappy with the way that two of the major labels kind of screwed everyone over with being piss poor production value, and I'm not happy with the way the bands were treated back then, especially Ebony Records. But there were several compilation albums at the time, like Metal for Mothers that came out in '79, that gave people a taste of what the bands were like, and then of course the bands came out, and most of these albums you'll find online on YouTube whole, and I would definitely recommend you give them a list. That's what I've done with this turn round for the playlist thing. I've increased it with full length albums instead of just single songs. Definitely check them out because they're worth a go. Fantastic stuff. Give a listen, at least give Maiden a listen, because that's what drew me into different genres as well. I was giving a listen to Maiden. Paolo D'Anno years, I've kind of added Killers to the list. That's the Paolo D'Anno singing, and then Bruce Dickinson, which has been Maiden's singer for God knows how long now. Anyway folks, I'm going to wrap this up. See you next time.